superstar, TV host in the BBC, RT, you name it, Al Jazeera, author, broadcaster, filmmaker, famous stockbroker, opinion trader. He's also co-founder of Bitcoin Capital and presenter of Keiser Report on RT. I first heard about Bitcoin from him like 10 years ago or longer. MaxKeiser.com. And he's with us, and he wants to get into Bitcoin and global currencies and what's happening in the markets, what's happening with coronavirus first, and then we're going to get into the most concerning developments with coronavirus. We had a long dinner last night. He, myself, his significant other, Stacey Herbert, and my wife, Erica. We had an in-depth discussion, and I concur with you about what's happening in China, that regardless of how bad the virus is, they're using it as a power grab. We'll look at the economy, Hillary, their piggyback with Bloomberg, what you think of the judge of the booty, and just a lot of really important points. What you think of Bill Barr. You think Bill Barr is good, you were telling me last night. I hope that's the case, and that he's not undermining the president. Now we've got 1,100 former ex-DOJ officials demanding Barr resign. So, maybe you're right. Maybe Barr is good. I just want to see some major action on the whole Epstein front. So it's good to have you here back in the ATX. I'm glad you called me when you landed yesterday.
I called in from the plane. I was dialing. I'm on the tarmac. I'm heading into South Congress in Austin to be as hipster and trendy as possible. And you're like, yeah, that's right. Come right over now. We got some barbecue. Don't stop. I got some great barbecue right here at the headquarters. And we just came right over. Well, and that's, of course, that's what we do. Now, Bitcoin, you missed at $1. You missed it at $10. You missed it at $100. You missed it at $1,000. The good news, Alex Jones, is that Bitcoin at $10,000 or $9,300 is equally attractive as it was at $100. I am officially raising my target for Bitcoin. And I first made this prediction when it was $1. I said this could go to $100,000. I'm raising my official target for the first time in 8 years. I'm raising it to $400,000. That's my new official target. So you've got a 40x return. $10,000 becomes $400,000. And so this is yet your new chance to make the Bitcoin phenomenon work for you, Alex Jones.
And I told you over 10 years ago I wasn't going to get into it until I thought the market stabilized. I know it's a real technology. I know it's needed. I know that our government, George Washington, beat the British because of encryption. Encryption was once seen as a munition. Only the NSA for a while had it. It's good to have it in the people's hands. But there's also been a wild, wild west and a lot of crap coin out there as well. But still, you believe Bitcoin, the original, is the gold standard.
Right. Everything but Bitcoin is basically pyrite or fool's gold. There's only one Bitcoin. Nothing else comes close. And now, good point. After 10 years, it's been accepted by the marketplace. It's established itself, and now large money's moving into this thing. And people,
I was about to say, so it had its crash, but now it's going back up, and the big money's going in, meaning they're not planning to extinct it. They just wanted to take it over.
There's no reason why it wouldn't be volatile, as it makes a move from $1 to $10,000, $20,000. That's extremely volatile. But to get to 20,000, 100,000, or 400,000, you need the volatility. That's perfectly normal. The best solution. There's a three-pronged approach that I'm telling you about right now. First of all is Cash App, which is a simple app on your phone. You can download this app, and you can stack Satoshis. A Satoshi is basically there's 100 Satoshis in every penny. Let's put it that way. So you can stack Satoshis on your Cash App. You can buy $1 at a time, $5 at a time, and you can build your position. Number two would be, if you don't want to keep your Bitcoin on that app, you can download it to something called a wallet. And in this case, I recommend the Green Wallet. It's the best wallet. It's the most secure wallet. And if you want to play with the big boys and you want to buy $10,000, $20,000 worth of Bitcoin at a time, then the place to go would be Kraken. Kraken is established since 2011. It's the best exchange, really, I think, in the world. And this is where you go when you're graduating to the big time in the Bitcoin space. But initially, it's Cash App. Just go to Cash App every single day, and you buy a few dollars worth of Bitcoin every single day.
Now, which one of these, what I like is the fact that if I can decide where it's invested or where it's kept in one of these, so I can actually tailor it so that I don't have this cryptocurrency somewhere where it's helping a bad guy.
Yeah, you can take delivery of your private keys. That's the whole thing. It's about individual sovereignty. It's all about the Fourth Amendment. You know, the Fourth Amendment guarantees privacy.
Well, what I like is this. And I could sit there and put money in an offshore account if everyone want to make me a political prisoner and try to get out of the country to protect myself and my family. But those banks will work with other big banks just to take your money away. But things like Bitcoin absolutely just brings diversity to the marketplace of digital currencies. And it is something that is completely legitimate. It's just like the power of fire, not just being with the gods, but being given to Prometheus.
It's unconfiscatable, which is great. So even a private account, those are all being cracked down upon. Those are all being looked into by various governments. Bitcoin is the only thing that's unconfiscatable, and it's the only thing where when you transact, that is the verification of that transaction. That's something you never find with gold. With gold, if I traded gold with you, you would have to verify that the gold that I traded with you was real. It wasn't tungsten or, you know, something that posing as gold. You need a third-party verification. With Bitcoin, that's not a problem because it verifies itself on the blockchain.
Well, we've got the owner of Twitter. You've got Eric Prince. You've got all these big players, all these big governments heavily invested in Bitcoin. And so clearly they think down the road it's going to end up being a continual powerful force. But you've gotten my point. I only talk about stuff that I really understand backwards and forwards. And so I've been waiting a decade believing in the technology, but I just could never tell my listeners, I think this is the best way to go because I don't want to steer them wrong.
Right. Well, you know, we're beyond that phase now where people are asking how it works.
No, I agree with you.
Because most of the things you deal with during the day, you have no idea how they work. The cars are ultimately technologically driven. Nobody knows how the technology in cars work. Nobody knows how most of the technology they deal with all day works. It's just accepted after 10 years of being up and running flawlessly. Now it works, we accept it, and people are using it as a store of value.
And it was all the fly-by-nighters and all the people running scams that could have brought it down, but they didn't.
Yeah, it withstood all the scams. So all the what we call, you know, the Bitcoin Cash, for example, is a scam. Craig Wright is a scam. These are some of the more obvious scams in the crypto space.
Again, this is your opinion. I don't even really know who these guys are.
Right. Okay. This is pretty well documented at this point. And everything, even Ethereum, to a large degree,
but that's the reason I've stayed away from it. It's all the fighting in the cryptocurrencies.
But I
don't like infighting.
Right, but anytime you have a revolutionary currency
like
this,
you
can have a lot of people
vying
for attention, and they're going to be changed. You know, I always say that you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And as long as you understand that, you will allow yourself to open up your mind to what unconfiscatable, immutable, censorship-resistant, store of value, gold 2.0 means to the world. It means people in Venezuela, Argentina have a way to fight back against the governments. It means people in America have a way to fight back against the government,
especially
against money
nations.
Printing and all this money inflation and all this psycho drama happening in the finance space. Trump saying, hey, we're going to introduce another tax break for stock market investors to keep the bubble going. That bubble, it's like 2008, will pop. And when it pops, you're going to thank goodness that you've got some Bitcoin.
Well, I'll say this. The global markets are obviously overvalued. I know Trump's just trying to prop up the bubble because what other choices he have, but it is smart to diversify. I want to tie Bitcoin now into what's happening with the virus, what's happening with the economy, what the virus is going to do to the Chinese economy, how that affects the world economy on the other side. And then we'll talk about Hillary and Bloomberg kissing in a tree. KSSSING. Max Keiser, quite the character, very informative, eccentric, in the dictionary next to the word eccentric, and the encyclopedia, there's a picture of Max Keiser, or at least there should be. I'm Alex Jones, your host. Thank you so much for joining us on this live Sunday transmission. By the way, you didn't come on here to pitch Bitcoin. You don't own part of those companies you just pitched, and they're not paying me. What happened is he was coming through connecting from another city, from another country. Today, let's get dinner. And then I said, listen, you're right. I should have gotten involved in Bitcoin and things a long time ago. Now it's settled out. Will you explain it to me? Will you take me under your wing and really walk me through it? And he said, yes. But he said, here's just the three basic things you need to know. You just start using them because it's good to diversify anyway. So I want to get into China, the economy. Obviously, I don't want the bubble to pop. Neither does Trump. It's not that the bubble's a good thing. I'm totally against it. But clearly, they're just pumping more liquidity. They're talking about, paying banks to loan now. Governments are. This is crazy. So I want to get your real economic outlook here in a moment. But first, get back to our conversation last night and on the drawing board in there, in my office, you were explaining to me the 3 companies that you say are good that I should start using and getting involved in to teach myself.
Right. And first of all, did I mention my Twitter handle is now Real Max Keiser? Because I had 250,000 followers on Max Keiser, but I realized that I'm rebirthing myself as a maximalist in the Bitcoin space for the 2020, the 21st century. So this is the trifecta of Bitcoin that anyone can basically dive in and become extremely proficient at Bitcoin. The first one would be the Cash app. So the Cash app, you can download that on your phone and you can buy minuscule amounts of Bitcoin just to get started. We say in the Bitcoin space, stack Satoshis or stack sats. Every single day, just put a few bucks into Bitcoin. If it's high, buy some. If it's low, buy some. Over a few months, you end up with a lot of Bitcoin. And a lot of people that, when they go shopping, they say, I'll pass on that $4 coffee and I'll buy $4 worth of Bitcoin. They do that for a year and suddenly they got $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 worth of Bitcoin. And they didn't sacrifice for that one bit. So it's just a matter of accumulating Bitcoin without any effort whatsoever as this price goes from the 9,000, 10,000 area up to 400,000, which is my new price target because it's going to equal the value of gold. Gold's worth about $7.5 trillion. Bitcoin at $400,000 would be worth about $7.5 trillion. And that's where it's going because now it competes with gold globally and it's used as a safe haven and a store of value.
And by the way, you were the first guy I ever heard talk about this more than 10 years ago. People are going to look at the 3 things you mentioned. You said this last night and I went and looked them up. I mean, I knew what Cash App was. I knew that Jack Dorsey was invested in it. Well, exactly. Folks, the ones that are going to end up being the most legitimate and the ones that have run the longest, the best, those are going to have the establishment start investing in them. And then that's when I'm like, hey, now I can tell listeners and myself, time to stick the toe in. Sure, a lot of folks made fortunes in the wild, wild west of all the stuff that went on the last 10 years. People said, Alex, why did you never get involved in it? Because I only, look, I know when I sell somebody, in fact, you've got my Super Silver toothpaste.
Yes, I've
got
got
it's patented, it's super high quality.
Super
and it
Silver
knocks
toothpaste.
out viruses and bacteria, and it makes your teeth incredibly clean, and it remineralizes them. So I'm selling something good that I know people are going to get a great response with. That's why I've been promoting colloidal silver type products for 25 years. Back then, they weren't accepted. Now they're totally accepted, even by hospitals, you name it.
True. It smells like Nancy Pelosi. That's kind of an added benefit when you get this.
It smells like death.
Super silver.
Smells like a dead dog. No, it doesn't.
It's like, right. So, well,
let me see that toothpaste.
Don't take my toothpaste, buddy. I've got it. I've got the toothpaste now.
You're shooting me.
Look.
Oh, that's it.
What's going on? Oh, don't bring out the 50 caliber again. No, don't do it. I was just trying to, just because you didn't buy Bitcoin at $1, don't blame me. I begged you to buy Bitcoin at $1, and you said no. It's a conspiracy from.
Give us your Bitcoin. Pirates. Sorry.
No, it's not a George Soros conspiracy, believe it or not. Not everything is a Soros conspiracy, Alex Jones.
Reloader.
Some things are actually just what they are. They're good. Oh, you need some more. There you go.
Hey, let's get serious.
I am deadly serious.
Let's talk global economy right now. How is this virus going to affect China?
Oh, well, the supply lines coming out of China are completely interrupted. So in the case of Apple Computer, for example, I'm not sure how they're going to continue in their business, but I do have a suspicion of what they will continue to do is they will buy back their own stock. For the last 5 years, Apple's earnings have not really gone up much at all, but the stock goes up because they keep buying back their own stock, which makes it look like the earnings are better than they really are. And they're able to do that by borrowing money from the central bank at 0% interest rates. That's one of the nefarious impacts of 0% interest rates.
Exactly.
Michael
Bloomberg doesn't really have
make a huge money on their stock options. And meanwhile, you and I are paying 19% on our credit cards. That's interest rate apartheid. How come I live in Bantustan where my credit card rate is 19% and Tim Cook gets to live on the other side of the interest rate apartheid wall, borrow money at 0%, buy back his own stock, which used to be illegal just a few years ago, pump up his stock options and make billions of dollars? How is that legal? How is that moral? How is that American? So over to you, Alex.
What's wrong with Tim Cook's eyes?
Well, he's a cyborg. I think that's pretty well understood at this point. And I'll tell you something about Steve Jobs. which actually it's not nice, so I won't.
No, he's
passed away, so
tell it.
I won't tell the ugly truth about Steve Jobs. I would rather talk about the future.
No.
After Cash App, the thing you got to keep in mind is Green Wallet. Because let's say you don't like Jack Dorsey. Let's say you're like, oh, Jack Dorsey is a censoring social media clown, and I don't want anything to do with him. I don't care. He's got a great app called Cash App. Well, he does have a great app called Cash App, and you can buy Bitcoin really easily, and you can do it every single day. If you don't want to keep it on Cash App, you can move it to something called Green Wallet. Green Wallet is the best Bitcoin wallet on the market today. It's called Green Wallet. Download Green Wallet now. Download Green Wallet now.
That's enough. We already have problems with like PayPal kicking journalists and people off of it, myself included.
Yes.
So that's another reason about the head of Twitter. He's buying up all of the internet processing banks and then censoring people. I mean, these dudes are real jerks, man.
Yeah, they come under a lot of pressure from governments to do all kinds of things that are anti-constitutional. But nevertheless, for the newbie, the noob out there who just wants, people ask me all the time, how do I get into Bitcoin? This is the easiest way to do it. It just happens to be the easiest way. Once you secure your coins.
No, you're right. We have to fund the revolution by making it go mainstream. That's what revolutions are supposed to do, is succeed.
Exactly right. And, you know, this revolution is going to be successful because the regulators who are in position to try to stop this revolution, when they start buying Bitcoin, then the revolution is won. Because the regulators get paid in fiat money, dollars, and those fiat money dollars are becoming increasingly worthless. So as they reject fiat money and take Bitcoin themselves, then the cops join the revolution, then we win. And that's happening now. A lot of regulators are quitting their jobs as regulators and joining Bitcoin startups because they know that this thing is unstoppable. It's unconfiscatable. It's immutable. It's the gold 2.0. Every single other coin out there is garbage when you compare it to Bitcoin. And that's how we are running this revolution. Now, third point, Alex Jones, is that if you start to get $10,000 in your account and you want to join a higher echelon of traders, you go to Kraken. Kraken is the #1 exchange in the world. It was started in 2011 by Jesse Powell, who's one of the most fantastic people in the Bitcoin space. He told the New York regulators to go pound sand because they tried to overregulate him with New York's bit license. He said, you know what? I'm not even going to do business in New York, so you can't do business in New York, but they do it every other state except New York and Washington state. But every other state you can buy on Kraken. It's the best exchange in the world. This is how you expand your Bitcoin empire. So there's 3 steps: Cash App, Green Wallet, Kraken. That's the trifecta, the holy trinity of Bitcoin individual sovereignty to take yourself out of the matrix and to own your own future and respect the Constitution.
By the way, we went out to dinner last night. He wasn't even going to come on the show, but he said, if I do, I only talk Bitcoin now. Everything is Bitcoin. As you can see,
I'm reborn as real Max Keiser on Twitter. I've abandoned the old Max Keiser because even on the old Max Keiser on Twitter, I mentioned other things than Bitcoin. I'm now just pure Bitcoin, real Max Keiser on Twitter. I am a purist. I'm a maximalist, and we're going to $400,000 on Bitcoin.
All right, let's get, okay. I really want to cover the waterfront, Avenatti, Hillary, and Bloomberg, the virus, China, the global economy with you when we come back. And then Mike Adams is going to be here next hour. Max Keiser is with us. Stay with us. Back in here, I have 2, you have none.
No.
That's how communist China works, or an authoritarian state. I have the guns, and you don't have anything.
I have super silver toothpaste, which is as powerful as all your weaponry in fighting the battle against cavities. Super silver toothpaste. It's made with something similar to silver, and it looks really cool. And if you use it, a lot of women will stop you on the street and say, hi, I'd like to marry you. Super silver toothpaste. It's for winners.
Available at InfoWarsStore.com. Still at 50% off, ladies and gentlemen.
50% off. That's an incredible deal.
It is actually a really good deal.
Speaking of Bitcoin, if you can buy it with Bitcoin, that's an excellent way to use your Bitcoin.
Hey.
Yes.
You are an enemy of the state.
Right. Okay, great. No problem.
You know how this
That's
works?
Fine.
I get all the guns. You get nothing.
I still have my Bitcoin to keep me safe from unreasonable search and seizure in the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment and the Second Amendment.
Don't you feel safer in a country where only the government has the guns?
No, Alex, I don't. I feel safer in a country
you love Hillary.
that has a reserve currency of Bitcoin.
Tell me you love
that
Xi
would be
Jinping.
the safest
Tell me,
currency.
You want to hear something scary?
You just pointed at my jewels. You're pointing those Nerf
This
guns
is
at
fully
my
powered up right now.
At my twang.
You know what that means? One
my
wrong
God.
move, buddy. One wrong move.
Wow, that's power.
See that?
That is power.
See that?
That's awesome.
Right in the lens. One wrong move. Now.
Your aim is getting better.
You tell me you love Hillary right now.
How would you like me to set flame to all of your food for a decade? The superfood. It's a whole pyramid of superfood.
How about a bullet?
Set it on fire.
Back to camera 7, please. This is fun. All right, I tell you what.
Ultimate fish oil.
You actually live in America. The citizens have guns as well as the government.
Reduce your cholesterol levels.
Here you go.
Quickly. And that's what you need in a super fish oil. Why sit down to a plate of 50 pounds of cod when you can just pop one of these tablets and get the same benefit? It's super fish oil, ultimate fish oil. Today, a special deal. Super silver special toothpaste and fish oil for 89.7% off. If you pay in Bitcoin, we'll pay you $500 back.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Why do you act like this on my show? You're doing such a professional. Hillary's laughing right now. You do such a professional job on your own international program that airs in 100 and something countries.
There's 100 countries. 30 million people a week watch Keiser Report, and it's now seen. It's dubbed into Spanish, and those shows are seen even more widely than our English-speaking Keiser Report.
But you don't act like a clown on that show.
Well, that's because I'm in Austin, Texas, and in Austin, Texas, you got to keep it weird. I respond to my environment. I'm a human being. I'm an organic
comes out
being.
Of Austin. We're not in Austin.
We are freaking in Austin. I'm going to give the address right now if you want to send your love notes.
This is a small.
Here we are. What?
Small part of Texas.
Right.
A little reservation of Texas here.
Right.
When they push the Native Americans back, they got little areas. My offices is still Texas.
Really?
Yeah, we're not.
I thought that your offices were like the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington, D.C. It's its own nation state with its own police force and its own set of rules. I thought here that was the case. Wow.
I think the globalists have lost the anti-gun battle.
That's like the old Norelco
the kids are
shaver
playing with
ads.
stuff like this.
Remember the Norelco shaver ads where Santa Claus was
that's like a nail gun
skiing down your face as an electric shaver.
We have a massive listenership that really wants to get serious.
Give
me stop it.
This fish oil product is great, but when I was a kid, we just sniffed glue. That was 15 cents.
And look what it did to you.
I mean, and it worked, right? I mean, I didn't have any ill effects because of it. And it's 15 cents. And, it's good for the whole day.
All right, give me 3 minutes serious on the global bubble and where do you think it'll pop and how long can they keep it pumped up?
Well, it all depends on how expansive these central banks will get in buying back a lot of this junk. So the central banks have, in America, I think it's $4.5 trillion worth of bad debts on their balance sheets. The ECB now has, similar quantity of bad debts. And so they have to keep coordinating, and Bank of Japan similarly, they have to coordinate this asset purchases or quantitative easing where all of the mistakes made by the globalists or Tim Cook or Jeff Bezos or whomever are purchased from them for treasury bills, and they get to wash their sins. It's a huge money laundering operation at the central banks. And as long as interest rates are zero, there's no cost to them because the borrowing costs are zero. So I think, the question with the coronavirus, to bring it back to that, the question always with the coronavirus is it going to be more disruptive than the central bank's ability to paper it over with more money printing? That's the only question. So far, with the coronavirus, stock markets have gone up. So they've said, the central banks have said, this is a disaster. This is a catastrophe. All the supply lines are going to be interrupted. So what we need to do is we need to print more money to paper over the mistake. And all that money goes directly into the stock market. It doesn't go into the real economy. And you know how we know that? Look at one very simple chart. It's called the money velocity chart. And it shows you how fast the money is circulating through the economy. It's hitting new all-time lows, even though the money supply, M1, M2, M3, are skyrocketing, it doesn't circulate because it just goes directly into the pockets of the financiers and hedge funds and people in New York buying $200 million apartments. So that's why you have this.
Which then generates inflation in the real economy for the average Joe.
Well, what it does is it distorts all the economic signals. So you have healthcare going up 100%, education costs going up 100%, but the economists in Washington saying there's no inflation. And the reason they can say there's no inflation is because they don't count those things in their calculation for inflation, so that they get the central banks to print more money.
They don't count luxury goods. So let's
they don't count housing. They don't count healthcare. Okay, let's expand on this.
And then the universities teach communism is the answer, and they point at somebody who most their assets is in fiat. I mean, obviously, Jeff Bezos couldn't even spend $3 or $4 billion of his money. It would end up crashing his stock. So he's not really worth $160 billion. In reality, it's a bunch of fiat crap that would make Bernie Madoff blush. But then the average student looks at that and thinks there's really all this money out there.
Well, what do they teach in university would be under the topic of Keynesianism or centrally planned economic models where economists get together and they plan the economy for the betterment of all. That's not a model that ever works, really. You could say it's socialism.
So we don't really have capitalism right now. We have crony capitalism.
And the problem is that we don't have sound money. We don't have gold. Certainly is not a standard for our money anymore. Bitcoin could be because it is hard money like gold, but that's not a unit of account in America either for transactions. We have fiat money, and fiat money is easily printed, and then we have a bunch of plutocrats and kleptocrats who keep changing the laws to make it easier to commit fraud. Like
because they get the first use of the money, which then makes them kings.
The Cantillon effect. That's right. That's why all the zip codes around Washington and around the central bank are very rich, because they are the ones that see the money first. They buy stuff that goes up in price, like a rare painting, a ski chalet, and these things are part of the assets that go up as they print money. And by the time it reaches mom and pop store owner in the middle of the country, it's lost all of its ability to generate any kind of genuine income. Why is there such an East Coast,
West Coast? Not all the people there, but just average people I run into, though, literally think Midwesterners or Texans or people in the Southwest are idiots, and they make fun of us and laugh at everybody. And it's not even true what they say.
Well, because if you are on the East Coast in New York and you're around Wall Street, you have the hand on the button that prints the money. And you make it easier for your own conscience if you vilify or dehumanize people and saying they're less than human. They're saying, I'm printing lots of money for my own benefit and I'm destroying the American economy. And the way that I can go to sleep at night is to say people in the Midwest are deplorables, like Hillary Clinton would say. Essentially, that's a slippery slope to dehumanization or scapegoating of people, which, of course, didn't work out in the 30s, did it? In the 1930s, you had a massive dehumanization and scapegoating of an entire ethnic group. And that led to catastrophe. But we see the same thing happening in America now, where the people who are printing the money are treating everybody else as less than human. And that is a slippery slope to a political catastrophe.
Well, I think we're down the slope now where they're saying attack Trump supporters everywhere. And it doesn't even get covered in the news when they run people over with vans, you name it.
Right. Well, Trump represents Americana. Trump is as American as apple pie. And, Wild Bill Hickok, he's an American icon, and that's where he comes from. And people want to think that if I'm American, I'm more like a Barack Obama, who's a very smooth-talking European diplomat. He'd do great in Europe as a diplomat. He's not an American political figure.
Exactly. Super slick Harvard dudes in $5,000 suits that are on private jets. That's not America.
No, that's why Pete Buttigieg is not American either. He's just sent in there, parachuted in like a new white Barack Obama to try to disrupt things on behalf of the McKinseys and the consultants and the plutocrats and the kleptocrats.
See, now we're getting the real smart Max Keiser here. We're going to come back with 2 more segments ahead of Mike Adams. Let's have you look at the races, look at Hillary and Bloomberg, all of it. Hour 2, and Max Keiser is now here. Max Keiser's here.
It was that potato soup. I had some of that cold storage potato soup good for 50 years? And it gave me clarity. Suddenly I could see things clearly for the first time in over 3 hours.
Well, actually governments are buying up all the storable food. Most places are already sold out, and we're selling more storable food than ever because of the coronavirus. And I just say it's good to have storable food to be prepared for whatever's coming in the future. And I think Trump is trying to prop things up because he inherited this mess. But if the economy goes down, that's when people really do need the storable food, and it funds our operation.
I just want to say that you got deplatformed because Rachel Maddow and NBC and MSNBC realized that your audience was huge. Their audience was dying. So she's the new Alex Jones on MSNBC, and they had to deplatform you. That was a coup by the corporations, mainstream media. It's shocking. You should be back in full regalia on every channel as you were. The fact that you've been deplatformed is a heinous miscarriage of media injustice.
Well, we were definitely way more popular than them, but that's not saying much.
I'm shocked.
They were collapsing.
They were collapsing. Now Rachel Maddow is this raging lunatic who is trying to do you. She's trying to do your act, essentially. You're Alex Jones, but she can't do it, and she's failing at it. And she went down the Russiagate hoax, the Ukraine Gate hoax, the impeachment hoax, and they keep her on the air, even though she's a pale version of Alex Jones. Just go home already. Fire yourself. You're a disgrace. Not you, of course, Rachel Maddow.
Well, I'm not gay, but he's a good-looking man.
Rachel Maddow is Nancy Pelosi's intimate partner, and when they get down with some ultimate fish oil, it's a beautiful thing. And not even AOC can stay away from that union. It's a threesome of socialism.
All right, Max Keiser. Max, this is a shorter segment, long segment coming up. Let me just ask you a question.
Yeah.
Getting back into the economy.
Yes.
As you said, the country is very divided, but Trump is winning. If Trump hadn't gotten in, what would you expect to happen to the economy?
We would be at war with Russia because Hillary is a Russophobe, and she's a bigot, and she's a racist, and she's an anti-Semite. A level of racial hatred towards Slavic people. She's a Russophobe, and she would be killing Russians because she's a psychopath. And that would be the first
Well, there is a deep state hatred of the Russians. Where does that come from?
It doesn't really exist, only in the minds of some conspiracy theorists, because there's no reason to have this antipathy toward Russia. Russia is out there trying to do business like everybody else. It's not undermining anyone's elections. It's a country that we could have an amazing relationship with to help.
Bill Maher Friday night
terrorism.
said Roger Stone was convicted for giving the WikiLeaks to the Russians. That no one's ever even said that. I think that's even backwards if you believe the lie. It's just pure crap.
Julian Assange is also somebody that, if we had a functioning constitution here in America, would be somehow rescued from being tortured by UK regulators who are sadistic, torturing maniacs. Same thing with Edward Snowden. I mean, Edward Snowden basically brought clarity. He told Americans what was really happening behind the scenes, as we should know. We should have transparency. He is essentially performing a vital function for democracy. He also is an American hero. And it's just not right that this mainstream media, Rachel Maddow, CNN, MSNBC, my old friend Alec Baldwin, who I had a friendship for 30 years, the second Trump won, he immediately disowned me, would never talk to me again, and started sending me emails like he's going to report me to the FBI because my show is an RT, even though he's been on my show many times with Russell Brand and others. So this is the level of psycho war that is being perpetrated on these poor victims, these poor Americans, these people that are being turned into bigots, racists, and anti-Semites.
Well, you told me you were there at the big after party thing for Saturday Night Live, and that they were just crying the night that Trump won.
Yeah, they were in a puddle of tears when Hillary lost.
We're going to break. Back in 60 seconds. Let's talk about Hillary and that story.
Rallying patriots worldwide in defense of human liberty. It's Alex Jones.
All right, we were just talking about the night that Trump won, 2016. You were there amongst all the leftists and Alec Baldwin and the rest of them.
Right.
They were just crying. It was like the end of the world had just happened.
It was awful. Like Alec Baldwin, I've known for 30 years. And then suddenly Hillary lost and Trump won. And he doesn't recognize that Trump is an American archetype. He won fair and square. And the Constitution didn't disappear. But he suddenly lashed out and he disowned a lot of people, myself. He disowned his brother, Stephen. You know, Stephen Baldwin and I did a show called The Great American Pilgrimage. And the point of the show was to make fun of Alec Baldwin for the entire series and to just travel around America and poke fun at Alec for being such a crybaby and a sore loser. And so we made a show, and we didn't get into it to that extent, sadly, but that was the premise of The Great American Pilgrimage with Stephen Baldwin, was to make fun of Alec Baldwin for 16 episodes as we drove across the country, which was my kind of how I got that going on the air.
Let's talk about Hillary and Bloomberg. Obviously, we were talking about this last night. It's well known that he's doing this for her to position himself so that at the broker convention, he like steps down and she goes forward, or he becomes president, and then he steps down, she becomes president. They even said that if they could have impeached Trump and Pence, they were going to have Pelosi as president, and then she would put Hillary in as VP, and then she would step down. They're openly saying this constantly. She really still thinks she's going to run. Talk about tone deaf. Talk about disconnected from reality.
Well, Michael Bloomberg is essentially a Republican, so I don't know why he's representing the Democratic Party, number one. Number two, this idea that the Democrats have been shown to be so dysfunctional, where you have the leading guy who's leading the pack is Bernie Sanders, who's at war with billionaires, who's on a platform of socialism. So the DNC parachutes in, changes all their laws to bring in another billionaire from New York to go to battle with another billionaire from New York, as if the end result of that won't be benefits to billionaires in New York. Obviously, all the billionaires in New York are going to cheer Mike Bloomberg Trump contest, because they're going to be working in their interest. But the DNC is so obviously corrupt, so obviously undermined by the interest of big money. And Hillary Clinton is such a toxic loser and such a nefarious influence on this entire party that she's literally going to put them into political cold storage for a generation or two.
But they're so delusional, they still think it's her right to rule. And there's this cult of Hillary Clinton using the Epstein blackmail to still control people.
She has this sense of entitlement that it was her turn. And what's amazing is that what we saw with Hillary's loss is what she would have been as a president. So she's a conniving, backstabbing, sore loser. And usually when people lose, even Al Gore went away gracefully. You know, he didn't stick around crying and trying to undermine the entire political process. You know, if in America, we don't like sore losers. You know, if you go into battle and you lose, you walk away from the battlefield and you don't cry about it. And it reinforces all the negative stereotypes about having a woman leader. She's setting women's rights back 20 or 30 years because she's failing to accept responsibility for her own actions.
So it was fake news when Newsweek said she was Madam President?
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi is doing no great favor to women's movement either. I mean, she's not, you know, she doesn't respect the rule of law, the Constitution.
What do you think's going on?
Fair play.
What do you think's going on with Bloomberg? Because he's been putting memes out that either make Trump look good or make Bloomberg look like an idiot, and now he's starring in a Mary Poppins play. Let's cue that up. This is not a joke for radio listeners. TV viewers will actually see it. And we played it last hour, guys. You guys cut the front off. Play it with the women cheering like he's God. And then he comes in and says, I'll make Americans behave. When, of course, the big joke is he's the nanny. The full video's on newswars.com. Cringe. Internet mocks Mike Bloomberg in bizarre stage play performance as Mary Poppins, the nanny mayor of New York. Here it is. There he is.
I'll tell you where I'm going.
Oh, beautiful, Michael.
First, Iowa, then New Hampshire. Maybe I can get the whole country to behave.
I mean, is this a joke? He's got a hook on his back. He's flying around being worshipped by leftists. And these weird leftists are always into weird, like 1930s style plays. And they act and behave like ventriloquist dolls. And then he's like shaking dogs' faces. And then he came to Texas and tried to talk in a Texas accent. And they have experts writing him like, sir, if you talk like this, they'll think you're a Texan. And then this Mary Poppins crap. I mean, he may be a space alien.
Look, this is all about unconscious marketing. You know what 4chan is, right? 4chan is kind of a collective of young, hacker-minded malcontents who there's no censorship whatsoever. They came up with Pepe the Frog. Hillary Clinton was convinced that Pepe the Frog was
a major enemy.
And represented Nazism, and she started quoting Pepe the Frog, and that was part of her downfall.
And now they've gotten Bro-Fist banned and the OK sign. 4chan, stop it! Right. They're going to ban the alphabet next.
So I think Mike Bloomberg is going to 4chan. He sees the wackiest memes over there, and he says, well, this is the way you get elected. You have to take the 4chan wackiest memes out there because somehow they hit everyone on a
But he doesn't get how to do it.
He has advisors because he has $1 billion. So he gets to the advisors and they get into a room and they say, how are we going to win this thing? And they say, well, we know that the American public is susceptible to 4chan memes. So let's go to 4chan, see what kind of memes they're generating about you, and use that as our campaign because for some reason that works.
And meanwhile, on Facebook, Twitter, Google, they're banning anybody who's pro-Trump, saying you're not allowed to have memes, but then Bloomberg could dump hundreds of millions on them.
Right. This is meme warfare. So it looks crazy and psychotic, but it's attacking people on their unconscious level and softening them up as a form of meme torture. So when they go into the voting booth, they feel like Stockholm Syndrome. They fall in love with their captor. They feel enslaved by these awful weaponized memes, and they end up voting for Mike Bloomberg.
But see, it's not working because I've been looking at these memes and they don't make sense.
They're not supposed to make sense. They're supposed to disrupt your unconscious mind so that you feel enslaved to your master meme, the meme master. And it works. It worked against Hillary to some degree. She fell for it. She didn't weaponize.
Yeah, but she was tailor-made to fall into it.
Because she was late to the party. Mike Bloomberg, because he's also a media-savvy guy, he has Bloomberg as a media empire. He understands the power of memes. He understands the power of 4chan and 8chan and all the spinoffs of these things.
Yeah, the gingerbread one. That made me really like Trump more, actually.
Well, the memes are powerful on the unconscious level, so you don't know how they're going to impact people's behavior. Mostly, it's very disruptive, and you are in a place of where it's very topsy-turvy and what you thought. And it's the same thing in the stock market. The worse the coronavirus gets, the better for the stock market, because the worse it gets, the more money printing we'll have from the central banks that goes right into the stock market. So you actually want the coronavirus to be as deadly as possible.
That's the old thing, war is the health of the state.
War in this, yeah, exactly. It adds more free money to the top 2 or 3% that own most of the stocks.
Who then fund socialist ideas to further consolidate control, but actually building a group of people that will tear them limb from limb.
It's not socialism, it's neo-feudalism.
I agree.
Let me explain.
Neo-feudalistic capitalism.
Let me explain. So only when you have a wealth gap like we do now, it's really a feudalistic model where not just most of the wealth is in a few hands, it's all of the wealth. And we are essentially serfs. You were used to peasant uprisings in places like Venezuela. There's like a peasant uprising in France called the Gilets Jaunes. In America, AOC and the Democrats and Bernie Sanders, this is a peasant uprising against an entrenched plutocracy. So in that respect...
But the entrenched plutocracy is actually funding the old communist model as the resistance, knowing it's going to fail. When they're all posing as Black Lives Matter supporters, Jeff Bezos and people, they're actually funding burning in oil.
What his strength would be is to recognize that this is a peasant revolt, and we in America that are being victimized by the opiate industry, the healthcare plutocrats, the banking cartel, are drifting into